Hello folks, my name is Chi Baker here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a mental health and addictions therapist. And I'm shooting this video due to the recent death of my son Nico's fourth grade teacher, Julia Collins, Maestra Julia Collins. And this video is to kind of help further explain some of the processes for him, his classmates, and anybody else who'd be of benefit, and just helping people understand some of the intricacies of grief and of trauma. And unfortunately, our kids have been through so much. We've been through so much over the past couple of years that there's been a lot of loss. There's been this kind of giant stacking event. And with the tragic loss of Maestra Julia, it may tip the scale for many of these unfortunate children. So I want to talk a little bit about, again, the stages of grief. And this goes off of Kubler-Ross's. There's a couple additions to the traditional model that she created. And I guess before I go into this, I really want to offer my heartfelt condolences to her surviving husband, Chris, and to her two sons, I believe it's Calvin and Forrest. The loss of a parent is probably one of the most tragic things that we as humans will go through. And for having a mother who, at such a young age, pass is deeply tragic. So, as a community, we reach out to them and hope they can find the support and the peace they need to move forward. One piece about the process of grieving is that there's no real correct formula or right way to grieve. I think there's healthier ways to grieve, which I will go into. But this model is kind of linear. It actually kind of shoots all over the place. You can also be in several stages at once. You can flip-flop back. It's not necessarily a smooth, even kind of trajectory. It can leap all over the place. You could start here, end up here, and go here. So it kind of goes all over the place. And that's just kind of helpful to know that there's not a lot of right and wrong. So kids, parents should be concerned, are we grieving correctly? Because there's not really a correct way. I've lost my pen. Okay. And with that, I think, again, there's healthier ways. So obviously things like talking about it, talking to peers, talking to parents, talking to professionals, talking to family members, other people in the community. I would say if you find your child or yourself is deeply saddened or sad for a long period of time, meaning more than maybe a couple weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, that's when you should really start to consider seeking professional help and having somebody help navigate, facilitate that healing process. Most people will have lingering sadness, but kind of that deep, heavy sadness is kind of what I'm talking about. And obviously there's going to be upwellings of sadness, a reminder of Maestra Julia. She really championed a lot at Bridger. She championed the PTA as the teacher. She was a support person for many of her peer teachers and helped with other programs. She was kind of what I consider kind and fierce, kind in terms of having a very supportive, nurturing, generous heart and really giving to the kids, and fierce in terms of her determination to help others and really help the student body, help the teachers, help the school, and help the parents. So just a beautiful, wonderful human being, which is where this loss is so difficult and tragic for all of us who knew her. Another piece about grieving is that grieving is very bizarre in terms of people who knew her well or who were in her presence often may not grieve a lot, while other people who barely knew her or maybe just hear about this story may grieve a tremendous amount. So grief doesn't always have to do with proximity or intimacy or closeness to the person or to the place or to the event. Sometimes it's something that you hear on the news. Sometimes it's something that you might hear in a conversation versus something that you knew closely or intimately. Okay, so this first stage, which I'll put a little asterisk, is shock, and I kind of separate this stage from the next stage, which is denial. And to me, shock is something of like, the news hits and you're blown away, and it's something that I would similar to say like a system overload. It's when that bar keeps spinning. It can't figure things out. It's still processing. It doesn't know how to compute. Your brain does that. It gets a kind of an overload, and it is kind of shell shocked. It doesn't know what to think, how to think, where to think, how to feel, and you're just feeling blasted. And a lot of times it's an overwhelming of a lot of emotions at once, and you can't pick through the emotions, a lot of thoughts. It's a disbelief. And so you're kind of in that state of confusion and paralysis, if you will. So that's the shock stage. And the shock stage may last long, again, or it could last short. It could be just a minute or two. The next is denial. So there's 1, 2. I'm going to number these again. They don't have to go in this numerical order. Denial is essentially avoiding the truth, avoiding the facts, avoiding the event. It's saying it didn't happen, it couldn't have happened, I don't believe it happened. Oftentimes it's because you do not want that news to be real. In this obviously event, nobody wanted Maestra Julia to pass. And so the brain goes into denial. And both the shock and denial, actually most of these can be healthy. So this is your brain coping with the news of a horrific event, and it can't deal with it yet. And so it's kind of blocking it. It's trying to manage it. And so in the beginning, a lot of these stages are very healthy. If they last too long, then they become unhealthy, which is something that we have to be very aware of. So again, denial. You're kind of saying, no, I'm avoiding, it's not true, it's not possible, you must be wrong, you're kidding, it might be fake news, whatever. You're just avoiding it. The next possible stage is one of anger. And what I want to say is that I kind of want to put in here, it could be what I would consider extreme emotion. So it could be anxiety, resentment, fear, shame. But there's an extreme emotion that happens. Obviously, if you don't like the news, that anger may be the most identifiable one. Again, most of us are going to be hit with a lot of emotions at once. And anger might just be the most prominent, the biggest one, the one that you can pick out, the one you can identify the most. It's one as humans, we probably feel quite often and can identify easy, especially some of the younger kids. So anger may appear, and anger can be expressed through verbal, by yelling, shouting, arguing. It could be physical, by wanting to fight, wanting to run, wanting to hide. That's another thing to go into. I won't go into it now, but kind of the fight and flight stage has been hit. So the adrenaline dump is happening. The mind and the body is trying to manage and is reeling in kind of survival mode. And so again, you can move really fast through emotions. So you could be angry and then you could be laughing hysterically, and then you could be crying, and then you could be really excited to go do something, and then you could be sitting there in your room kind of back in that state of denial and rocking yourself to self-soothe. So you could be going through a lot and it can really flip on and off. And so parents, kids, you really need to be aware that your kid may just be spinning all over the place, and bouncing around. And it's good to allow that to happen, but also contain it, which hopefully I'll get to a little bit. But, finding healthy places, times to scream, finding healthy ways to be physical without hurting oneself or hurting others. And then that's another point, is the healthier ways is that you're not going to inflict harm on yourself or others. The unhealthy way is that you're inflicting harm on yourself or others. And it's also just minimizing what I would consider moderately unhealthy mechanisms. So watching a movie, right? You can watch a movie, but don't watch 10 movies in one night. You can maybe have a cookie, but don't have a whole packet of cookies. You might go punch a pillow, but don't punch a wall or punch somebody else, right? You want to contain that behavior so that it doesn't cause harm. And we know that slightly unhealthy things over a long period of time become very unhealthy and very harmful. So we want to watch that. The next one is bargaining. And actually put that here. So this is 3, this is 4. So bargaining is, again, kind of a combination, a lot of these, of denial, anger, and a lot of people play the what if game, like, what if I do this? In this case, what if I do all my chores? Can you bring Maestra Julia back? What if I offer a lot of donations to this worthy cause? Can you fix this problem? They're often extremely unrealistic. They are not possible, but it's what the brain does, again, to cope, to manage, to decrease the pain and the suffering. And the bargaining can go on for quite a while. And again, I think it's good to know you're not going crazy if you're practicing the bargaining portion. It's just a way to cope. So if you're trying to think of the things you could do to bring her back, that is reasonable, just not possible, unfortunately. So the bargaining does happen. When I lost my dad, I definitely had a lot of bargaining with my higher power, trying to figure it out, trying to find a solution. Fortunately, there was no solution, right? So the bottom one here is depression. And most of us know what depression is. So that's kind of an extreme and prolonged period of sadness. So again, if this sadness has lasted for longer than 2 to 3 months, it starts to become significant and really potentially harmful. And this is where seeking professional help, I think, is a necessity. That more than likely your friend, you, whatever activity you're trying to kind of heal, to cure, isn't going to get you out of there. And seeking a professional, whether it's a counselor, a social worker, a doctor, even a clergyman, a spiritual leader, is of benefit, if not, again, a necessity. And this is, again, depression is something that's kind of sunk in. It's going to really start to affect a lot of areas of your life. So loss of appetite, poor sleep, low energy, inability to concentrate, could be nightmares, isolating, not wanting to participate in fun, usual recreational activities, not really being able to pull yourself up. And again, depression happens, what we want to be careful of is that we're not using unhealthy means to get through, i.e. self-medicate. Again, that can be drugs and alcohol. It can be through violence. It can be through shopping. It can be through a lot of things that are unhealthy, and kind of keeping it to kind of the 4th grade level, which is unfortunately the classmate that is enduring the brunt of this tragedy. So we want to be really careful about the duration of that sadness, and again, how deep it goes. And you can go from sadness to depression really fast, like within 24 hours. So it doesn't have to be over an extended period of time. It can happen really fast, particularly if it's somebody who's really close to you, that you were really intimate with, emotionally, physically, intellectually. The next stage, so this is number 5. The next stage is what some people call, what I call the exploring. Some people call the testing phase. And I apologize for my penmanship. So this phase is when you're looking at solutions. You're looking at what could be a benefit. Maybe it's finding another mentor that you might really appreciate and enjoy. So it could be another teacher, Miss Leanne, the resource counselor. Could be anyone. Could be somebody in the community. But finding somebody who maybe we can't ever replace anybody, but can really help you through. So you're looking at solutions of, I once had this great support person, I need another great support person. And so you kind of start to open up those doors for exploring, for reaching out. It could be finding an activity that you could really thrive in. It could be just starting to go to counseling, saying, you know what, I think maybe I should start talking about this. Starting to be willing to involve yourself in an exit to your depression. So it's kind of the exploration testing. And I think it's good to help a child come up with options and know that there'll be some trial and error in that. And if it doesn't work the first time, it doesn't mean it won't work the second time. If it doesn't work the 50th time, it doesn't mean it's not going to work the 51st time. So keep trying. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a clinical supervisor for people working towards licensure. And I am not an advocate for medication, but I see it as a viable option. So I don't throw meds at problems, which is what I term as an advocate. What I say is that this might help. Again, if you've been in depression for more than 3 months, it might be good to get a medication boost that helps you lift up your mood, which then allows you the willingness to do other things. So it's something to investigate with a professional, again, your pediatrician, a psychiatrist, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, somebody who knows medication and can make a really good, solid eval. The next stage is the acceptance stage. And the acceptance stage is something where you finally say, this is reality. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to push it away. I'm not going to avoid it. This is reality as it sits today. And that takes a while. And this accepting what's happened is going to take a while for her husband, her children, the faculty members, I'm sure my son, for myself, for many people in the community. It's going to take a while. But it's understanding the loss is real, it's lasting, it's not going to change. And it's finding that realization. The key about acceptance is it's the launching pad, the springboard for true healing, which is the next stage. which is the thriving stage. And this is kind of a stage that I kind of add, and it's about moving forward. And it's about moving forward in ways that were better than where you were before. So in this case, it might be that you move forward in an activity that you always wanted to do and decide maybe even a dedication to Maestra Julia and say, I'm going to dedicate me trying this and persevering and becoming better in this for her. That's kind of to honor her. So it's finding areas in your life that you can thrive in, that you can really move forward in, that you can excel and kind of be better or more at a higher level, right, than where you initially started. Understandably, again, you can never replace anyone. That's not going to happen. But you can move on in other areas of your life. Potentially, you may be able to move on eventually and really rebuild a life. So again, I think it's helpful for the kids to understand kind of this may be a trajectory that they go through. The shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, exploring / testing, acceptance, and then thriving. That their emotions will tend to be all over the place. Their bodies may be all over the place. They're eating, they're sleeping, all sorts of stuff may be all over the place. Please, as parents, talk to them, check in with them, find out how things are going. Some kids are really good at hiding things. I was as a kid. And check in with them. I think things, they may say they're fine, but again, if they're not eating well, if they're not participating in activities that they enjoy, if they are doing high risk activities, if they're not doing well, maybe in school, not wanting to hang out with friends that they used to enjoy, all those things, those are good gauges that your child really isn't doing well. And recognize that, or that you're not doing well, and recognize that and say, okay, what can be done about this? Who can we find to help in this manner? I hope as a community we can really offer the support for Chris and his 2 sons, and really find a way to help the community, her students, the students that knew her. She was an amazing blessing to the community, and she is deeply missed already. There's already been an amazing outpouring of support and demonstration of how much the students love her and miss her. I know there's going to be a vigil. I think it's happening on March 25th. And so please support your children, support your community, and find ways to heal those who are struggling and suffering, as well as heal yourself. All right, guys, take care.